I'm popular again. I mean, I wouldn't be talking to you. Party Girl after 30 years is coming out and as a re-release. Like, this is crazy.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Parker Posey is an actor. She sat down with me in cyberspace to talk about the work. What is your first step into a new character? What is your road down toward wrapping your arms around this person that you have to play?
Well, I think it's first being supported by the writing and feeling like they're kind of wrapping their voice around what I will bring. But that's a really nice way of putting it, because it really is all about the story. And it's like, I think these smaller parts are a lot harder than, it's a certain kind of work or a certain kind of instrument, I guess, a certain vibrancy, whatever, of coming in with a small part and fitting it in. So it's like putting pins on the map of the whole story. And then like, well, what does this look like? Can anyone show me pictures? There's a lot of mind reading going on, I think, and a lot of magical thinking and like daydreaming, and working on Ari's movie and Antonio with Staircase. The coupling of those two parts was just, it just felt right. I mean, as dark and kind of difficult as it was, I didn't really feel like I was out of the water. You know, it was interesting, and it had this energy, and a lot of it's about going like, no, this is what I asked for. This has come into my direction, and I'm going to yield. And so there's a zen to it. But back to your question, it's hair and shoes. How am I going to play this? What's her hair and what are her shoes? So the wardrobe was great on both Staircase and Beau Is Afraid. And you have these amazing wardrobe designers and art department. The house in the Staircase, the Peterson house, was so real that I was hanging out with my castmates. We didn't get to hang out together all that much because we were the prosecuting team, but there was this walkthrough in the Peterson home, and where I got to see the other side, and we were all in chairs, and they had the scene after we were shooting, and I was talking to Justice, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm just gonna, and I went to the bathroom, and it was a set. So it wasn't a real bathroom. And I got it there. I was like, I undid my pants, and oh my God, I almost, like, it was that real. Like, you could look out the windows and it looked like there was grass outside. So
that would have been bad if you started to feel the bottom of your feet wet, and you're like,
and
wait,
I just
what?
walked out going, oh God, I think I'm going to get out of this house. Yeah, you do enter into a whole other realm. So both of these worlds had all the makings to wrap me up and take me in. Yeah, it's nice.
Someone might find this hard to believe that carrying a film for you is actually easier in a way than coming in on these and trying to figure out the tone and on these small parts and trying to latch onto that and be a part of that.
You have to slip in. It's like, like during the play, I had my tea, I have my heating pad, I bring my dinner, like everything was all timed up and almost like a ritual, and like the line that I know my cue and all these like things. So the whole environment outside of work is the work as well. And you have other people going like, well, she's just working 2 days on this, so it really shouldn't be like, no, I started working on it when I read it, and it's resonated. And so you're not just living in one room of the house. It's like the whole house, that every room has to belong. Although I will say, like, some films, what I see, I don't see that cohesive quality, and you don't see people belonging in the movies together. You see power dynamics, you see people up their own kind of singularity and their own thing and different tone, and it doesn't seem to matter. I think casting is really important. Everyone knows that they're, what world they're in. I'm hoping, and I've been talking about this, and I'm hoping cinema comes back. And there seems to be, I think maybe through COVID with Criterion and Mubi, that they're wanting that auteur. People are wanting that auteur experience, and missing like a conversation that's more, interesting and human. And well, what did you think? And I think Ari is so masterful in what he's done with this movie and creating that kind of conversation.
Yes.
Because it really is all about you and what you think. I mean, and at the end of the day, where was how did it resonate for you? Right. What did it bring out for you? We're not reporting to the consensus, now everyone's like a critic. So it just feels like I've heard from younger people talk about like a movie and then they didn't see it, but they read about it. Yeah. And that's a legitimate, like, no, I read that don't look up, it was cynical. Oh, but you didn't actually see it, because I was crying at the end. I think Adam McKay's a genius. No, I started it, but I mean, I feel for them because there's so much distraction. Yes. And there's a lot to keep up when you are your own brand and you are your own secretary and you have to organize your life and get out of the door. It's a lot.
The world is on their shoulders.
Poor Beau. Look how hard it is for Beau, Look at Beau, how hard it is for him to leave the apartment. And he can't even, he doesn't even know what time it is. The clock keeps changing.
What was that set like, a Beau Is Afraid? Because it feels like this is something where this is a true independent mind having a lot of money and time. Did you feel taken care of, or did you feel like just another part of the set? Well,
it's interesting, because, we're all affected by Mona, Beau's mom. Mona has so much. Mona is in charge. So it's kind of this movie. So the character and the reality is so inside out. And when I think about Elaine, working for Mona and, that particular scene, and the things that it could hold. And, we shot it at 4:30 in the morning, and it was like, I'm so sorry, Parker. So, okay, we're turning around on you. We have like an hour. And I'm like, that's okay. Like, I'll just go down the mountain. When you're working with people who are the real deals, it's just like being able to trust. And I've been so lucky. I worked with Joaquin in the Rational Man, and I've worked with so many directors who really put so much trust in the actor and the universe that is inside of them and their own preparation, that it is just like, it's all about trust, I think, and, not getting in your own way. And I think, the work of an actor too, it's just such a great metaphor for life, and not judging it, and going with the flow, and not thinking, not having expectations, and not thinking that you're going to get away with something being easy. So I think everyone kind of agreed and knew that place, that if it's not hard or difficult or scary or unknown, that it won't be as good. It just won't have that kind of dust on it. And, both Ari and Joaquin are such dynamic artists it's great.
I'm curious what directorial approach has worked best for you? I'm getting the impression from actors that have been on the show that good advice for directors is talk less. I guess you can really over talk something, over direct. You can talk the agency right out of an actor.
Oh yeah, it's just best to leave them alone. Trust trust that they've done the work already. Like you read a script and it's just like you become a sponge, and something resonates, and you're just like, and then you have like you have a director like Ari, and his movies, and so you're inspired by him, and you read the script and you're just like, okay, I'm just gonna slide right in here. And you just hope you're on the same page, but it is a certain kind of listening, and it almost feels like, so instinctual and psychic, and you just there's a certain kind of listening, how you can talk to a dog and you can just do something with your body and they'll sit, or you can just kind of exude something and something will take shape. And I got to work with Christopher Guest in those movies, which he gives you so much freedom. And it's like, well, what do I don't know. What do you think? You're going into the pet store, you're going to ask for a toy that he doesn't have. And, that's just play the scene. And just trust that all your homework and all that sponging that you've just soaked up as much as you can. And it's kind of like an osmosis thing. And by the time you get to work, you don't, you're kind of dancing with, your scene partner and the director, and just trying not to think too much. So the good directors just create a nice atmosphere, the right atmosphere. And then and just the atmosphere also creates itself depending on what the story is. So, I mean, with like Beau Is Afraid, there was all this crazy stuff just going on for me to even get there. I was shooting Staircase at the same time in Atlanta with Antonio Campos, and this huge cast, and Colin ended up getting COVID, and like the two productions were back to back. So I shot all night on a Friday night and arrived on Saturday afternoon to do all of my courtroom stuff from Monday to Friday, including like a COVID test at 5:30 in the morning because they'd have to wait an hour. Oh, so it's just like, this kind of edge is just kind of created on its own. And that's what makes it fun. And the more actors I talk to about this, the more, these stories like come about, the more of an athlete I realize it is, yes. There's an athletic quality to it of awareness and balance and groundedness and being focused but relaxed at the same time.
And it's also because your body is the instrument that you're using. It's the thing that,
and the physicality is all on the inside. I mean, sometimes it's on the outside too, but the physicality is just a particular kind of exhaustion that it's a lot to carry. And, I have all sorts of potions in my bag, and my oregano oil and ginger, and yes. smell things, and drink lots of tea. I go to things to keep it cozy.
Yeah.
Patti LuPone traveled with like gaffer's tape and blackout material, and like blacked out her windows in her hotel. She knew she'd be working nights, and she just really knew how to take care of herself.
We have to talk about Party Girl because this is what brought us together, because it's the 4K re-release of this thing, which I just saw again. I haven't seen it in years.
I won't be seeing it. It's too much like This Is Your Life or something. Like, I think I'll just like start crying. Yeah. I have to do like a Q&A after, and I'll just be like, oh, like on RuPaul's Drag Race, I was on RuPaul's Drag Race, where they're like, what would you say to this little boy here? I'm just like, I'm unable to. They're like, why don't you come back to SUNY Purchase and talk to the graduating class? I'm like, I don't think I could. Like, I would just be like crying and shaking. Like, in regards to Party Girl,
where were you in terms of like a handle on your craft at that moment? Because it felt like you were in command of the film.
When you shoot these movies in like 22 days and there were no money and it was shot in film. So it was really like, we only have enough in the mag for 2 takes.
Yeah.
Get it right. Can you do it in 2 takes? And you go, yeah. And everyone around is like, frozen in there, like all focused on this part of the story and not moving around. And it has this energy, and
yes, that
makes it, this Particle was very, was very fast and furious. And it was like those independent movies back then. It was 2 takes, 3 takes.
Amazing.
Like ideally you kind of get it in the first take. So it does have this, and everyone is on point.
Because they have to be, right? I mean,
because they have to be. And there's this risk of like, oh my God, it's like, if we don't get it, then, we have to get it. This is like, it was just so precious.
Mm.
So, and then I watched all these screwball comedies and just took my inspiration from that, which was pretty like easy to lock into. And I loved those movies growing up, but this witty repartee and just, this kind of pace and this kind of rich, Mary's problems are white people problems.
Right.
She's
right.
She's she wants to throw the party, it's just,
Yes.
And you can't, but there's something just so charming. It's fun. It's like, the movie was made so people could, this is what I just want people to, I want kids to see this and know that they don't have to live in their small town, and they can leave and they can make things, and they could go to a big city and they could go out dancing. Yes. And I want them dancing in front of the TV. Like I would dance in front of the TV, and I watched like, these movie musicals as a little girl, and would just like dancing around a house. And, back then, I guess it was like Law and Order, and, just like a lot of darkness in New York, and this like gritty, like cop shows. And, I would have relatives come and go like, I didn't know you could walk in Washington Square Park at night. And you're like, yeah, you can. New York for me, having been able to, my first apartment was like $746 a month. And I lived there for 13 years.
Amazing.
It was a place back then where you could live cheaply.
Yep.
And be spontaneous.
Yes. Do you have like a nostalgia for the 90s like I do, which is very unhealthy, which is like, I have this thing I can't get rid of, which is like just how lame it is now, and how lame everyone is, and they're on their phones and everything. And like, I feel so lucky, right? That I came around in that time. Do you feel that way?
I know. I just, the younger generation makes me feel nostalgic because they have a nostalgia for it. So, and then I go like, oh, I'll go further with that and say there's a grief.
Yes.
To what New York used to be and what it is now.
Yes.
And if we don't have artists and new voices, and if it really is all surface and, the 2-dimensional thing of it, then what is New York City? Isn't it the apex of the creative force of this country?
Yes.
What is being done about making sure it stays like that?
Yes.
There's part of being a person in the city is that we care about, keeping that torch lit. And I think we get older and we kind of see what the culture can hold, and we get disappointed and nostalgic. But the truth is, there are people and younger people, it has changed, but it's a different it's just holding it differently now. I don't know. I want to fix things, and it's just arrogant to think that and just be like, I do live in like, I'm just a cheerleader about it. And and then I go like, that's out of touch. So I don't know. It's not up to us. It's up to the young people who are 15 years old and 16 years old, going like, this is weird what we're living in right now. What am I going to make? How am I going to bring people together?
Right.
What are the new forms? And
responding to their time. Yes.
Yeah. But don't you think it's just kind of a trauma now that from these devices of the younger people going like, my feelings have been hurt for a decade, and they were from the ages of like 10 to 20. And I'm bruised by it, and I didn't like it, and I didn't vote for it, and I didn't ask for it. And I'm alienated. And, I feel for those girls who have to measure themselves up to that. But I do know a young adult, Sam, who's my friend Julie's daughter, and they live in Chicago. She's very savvy, and she isn't alienated. And so I do have hope.
When I learned from an interview that you did somewhere that you being called the Queen of the Indies was actually something that was preventing you from like breaking into like studio movies at this time, like because people were saying like, well, no, she's too indie. It made me so angry.
I know, it's wild. So I asked my agents at the time, and they said, I was like, just tell me why I'm not getting this. Like, what is the feedback about me in this like 3-scene part in this big Hollywood movie? And they said, well, they said you're too much of an indie queen.
So angry.
And I was shook.
Yeah.
I was shook. I'm like, oh, wow. And then it happened with the John Waters movie that he had written called Fruitcake. That was so funny. And it was like a Little Rascals, like a gay Little Rascals. It takes place in Baltimore. And it would be me and Johnny Knoxville as the parents to Fruitcake, who's a little gay boy who lives and plays in the sewers in Baltimore with his Little Rascal type friends and singing. I mean, it was just so funny. And then all of a sudden it like whatever like spreadsheet algorithm, whatever thing that had like some kind of red stamp, scarlet letter, like indie queen, like she's no longer with us.
Wow.
And she's banished. It was just like, I don't know what to do with that. But then I would meet like, directors who I'd go out to LA, I'd take meetings, and they would want to meet me and hang out with me. And they're like, oh, wow, we'd have just a nice hang. And then I'd hear like, yeah, you would have been great in that. But, I had to cast this person, and but you're actually right for it and age appropriate. But, this is what we are up against, and what we have to do to make our movies.
Right.
And so it was kind of like, oh, well, I've been in this band and I've been successful in this dirty band that was so scrappy and so punk and so much work. Right. And it didn't count for anything. Right. In fact, it was like, oh, but she she wasn't in our band, and she's still not.
Right.
And we don't really.
Doesn't matter how well you sing. It doesn't matter how well you command the stage, right up there. Doesn't matter how many fans you have in the club or whatever.
Yeah.
All that, it's just like labels. I feel like this is getting worse though, because a label sticks on you now. It seems like even more than maybe it did ever before, because everything is just labels now.
Right.
And even like a good label can then, if you want to move into something else, that label just sticks with you, even if it's a good thing at that moment.
Yeah, and there's this thing too. It's like, don't stay in your lane.
Right.
Too. Like,
right.
Don't go into, it's just harder for, to be like, oh, she's a woman and an artist, right? It's like, oh, she's an actor and an artist. And she's like 25 years old. Like, it just wasn't, people didn't talk like that then, it wasn't, it really, I mean, I had other people telling me like, well, you're an artist. I don't really know what that means. Tell me what that means. Or, a writer saying, you should write a book. They're like, why? Well, you have a point of view. You're an artist. Well, I just like to make an independent movie again. Like, but then kind of a time where I was forced to do something else and like really create my own work. And when I wrote my book and sold my proposal, I should say, I got cast in Lost in Space, and all of a sudden, like, I'm in another world, and I was so happy about that, and for that experience, and Vancouver, and the show that I loved as a kid.
Yeah.
So I mean, I used to wake up and on Sundays before 6 a.m. and watch that. Yeah. Wait for the color bars to change from static and watch that show.
Yeah.
I'd wake myself up as a 5-year-old to watch that show. And I just felt so lucky. So, I mean, no complaints. It's just like, it's a difficult sport.
An actor on my show last week, a young actress, said it's really sad that Hollywood has this obsession with youth. She said, because I feel like I'm getting better and better, and I know I'm going to be better when I'm older. And it made me sad because I know that's true, and I feel like that's true for everyone. And I wonder if you thought that that's true for you. I feel like you were always in touch with your instrument in a way, to sound really pretentious, but because you are so conscious, it must be growing.
Oh God. I mean, to make a transition, right? From younger ingenue to now these darker, like crone, witchy roles is, I'm just very lucky. This is like, I hope it continues. I've worked my whole career, which is also, we were talking about full circle earlier. That is so rare.
Yeah.
But it's so hard. I can't even, gut-wrenching things and what you see of people, and it can just be so, it's something to like, go through, and it's just tough as a woman, right? Like my friend Jack always says, Betty Davis, The Lonely Life. That was her bio, The Lonely Life. And it's this thing too, like you just like, you don't fight it. You go like, this is the balance.
Yeah.
So it's, it forces one to, work on how you see things and take care of yourself. And I've learned a lot. I think I've grown a lot. It will always be a youth-obsessed culture. That's not going to change. So I remember working in House of Jazz with Jean-Pierre Bougeot, who played my mom. And she told me, and I was like 25 at the time, and she's like, you're a very good actress, but wait until you're in your 40s and you will be even better. It's like, yeah. And I don't know. I don't like to think and not like, I don't know. I can't, I'm popular again.
Yes.
I mean, I wouldn't be talking to you. And so I'm really like, Party Girl after 30 years is coming out and as a re-release. Like, this is crazy. The younger people love it. When I was doing press for Beau Is Afraid, I see these 20-year-olds and they just have that great energy. And they're like, oh, we love, Party Girl and Josie and the Pussycats. And I was like, God, that's really sweet. It's just sweet.
Parker Posey, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham, formerly IFP. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.